On the 6th of June 2025, I ran my first ever full distance marathon, and it was about as hard as you can imagine. In this video, I'm basically going to break down what it was like. Now, if you're new here, I'm going to ask you to do the standard stuff of liking this video and subscribing to my channel, because I'm bringing out content like this all the time. And when I say content like this, I mean a combination of documenting my own journey as a runner, but also helping you become a pro plodder yourself. If you're here from my Instagram channel, you'll know what I stand for, but for the newcomers that might not know who I am, I stand up for the slow runners, the ones that are at the back of the pack, and the ones that are out there chilling, taking in nature and enjoying the vibes. That's what we're all about. If that sounds like a bit of you, you know what to do. Now, it's probably worth starting off with a little bit of context. I am not a runner, or at least I wasn't. I come from more of a lifting background. If we rewind, let's say 2 years, the idea of me doing a run at all, let alone a full marathon, would have been an absolutely absurd suggestion. And yet here we are. My job is basically to coach runners, and I have an Instagram account and now a YouTube account dedicated to it. A marathon has always been something on my bucket list, but I'd kind of never gotten around to doing it. I was very, very unathletic as a kid. I was forced to do the 1500 meters for sports day, and I ended up crying because I hated it so much. For now, that's me in a nutshell. Now, as far as the actual marathon goes, I was meant to do it with my partner Kerry, but she's a fucking traitor, and she cancelled. I'm mainly joking, but she did actually bail, for some very good reasons. She basically had all the greatest intentions of running the full marathon with me, but injuries, illnesses, all these types of things got in the way, and she just wasn't left with enough time to train. So she kind of came to the decision that running them a full marathon probably wasn't a good idea, which I 100% support. But we were actually really lucky that the event that we booked it on with kind of specialised in doing super flexible events, which brings me on to my next point. I'm not being paid to say this, but Saturn Running put on some amazing events. Super flexible, super low barrier to entry. The way the event was laid out was that there was a 5-kilometer loop, and you basically did that as many times as you needed to make up the distance that you wanted to do on the day, which you could actually decide on the day as well, which is pretty unique, I think. And actually, if you've done events like this, let me know in the comments below. But for her, it meant that she could still show up and make the most out of race day. She ended up doing a half marathon with basically no training. I'm going to leave it there, but she blew me away that day. Very, very proud. Me, on the other hand, I was able to train. And let me tell you, when they say that training is the hard part of running a marathon, I can absolutely agree with that. Whilst running it was obviously difficult, the amount of hours that I had to put in the weeks leading up to it was just a lot. On top of that, we had stupidly booked in a triathlon as well about 4 weeks before the marathon, which was also a stupid idea. But I digress. The point of this video was to tell you what it was like on the day, so I'm going to get to that. It all starts from the night before. From the carb loading, to trying but not successfully getting a good night's sleep, to making sure I remembered to put the Garmin on charge as well, which I did all three to the best of my ability. The carb loading wasn't difficult at all. My personal preference for carb loading is basically a solid pizza, which if you're thinking about doing a big old event, as a general rule of thumb, don't try anything new on race day. Every long run you do in the build up to something like this gives you an opportunity to kind of practice things, and pizza was the best thing that I'd come up with. It sat well in my stomach, has loads of carbohydrates that are going to sit there for a while and fuel you for your race, and all you have to do is have a good breakfast, a good tried and tested breakfast, and then fueling during the marathon as well. It all sounds so simple. Now, while I can't tell you specifically what you should be having throughout your marathon, I did actually come up with a free nutrition guide. I've included that link somewhere in the description, so if you want to grab that, please feel free. It kind of delves into what you should be having the night before, right before, during, and after your runs to maximise performance, maximise recovery, yada yada, but minus all the jargon. So picture this, we set off in the car, it takes us about an hour to get up to Egham, and we get to the wrong place. We didn't double check the email, but essentially they had a last minute change of location. Luckily it wasn't too far away, but after getting to some random car park that we were told to go to, with no one nearby looking like runners, we were sure we had made a mistake. So we ended up going to, I think, a punting club, which actually ended up being spectacular. It was so pretty. It was basically along the Thames, beautiful scenery around, with really nice luxury homes, houseboats all docked up, and it was all round just a really nice location to run in. At first I was thinking it'd be a little bit monotonous, kind of running to and from in the same sort of loopy sort of fashion, but that actually worked quite well. What was nice about it was that I didn't actually have to think about where I was going. I could just sort of sit into it and run. So anyway, we get to the main sort of hub, which also kind of doubles as an aid station. They have loads of snacks, loads of drinks that we could kind of help ourselves to, and then it was literally about lacing up and getting going. It was actually a really cool experience to just kind of set off my first marathon. The weather was good, there was a bit of a breeze, I had my newly broken in shoes, everything was set to be a good race, apart from the fact that the first 5 kilometers felt like I had lead legs. Not ideal. So this wasn't a mistake, but I kind of contradicted myself by changing a few things on race day. One fairly major thing, which is I normally like to run on caffeine. So what I'll tend to do is I'll have some caffeine kind of way before the run starts, usually in the form of a Monster. But I decided that it'd be more useful for the caffeine to kind of kick in whilst I'm doing the run, not beforehand. you know, because I'd be running for about 5 or 6 hours. So that's what I did. But it did mean that the first 5 kilometers were very difficult. And I'll be honest, mentally I was kind of in a headspace of, am I even going to be able to complete this? It was really hard. I think I went out a bit too fast as well. But they do say the first section of a race is always the worst. You know, you're warming up into it, your body's not quite woken up, and yeah, it just wasn't that great. The next 10 kilometers, however, were fabulous. My legs felt great, the caffeine had kicked in, I was into my 3rd gel at this point, I think, bearing in mind we're 15 kilometers in at this point, and it was probably the nicest 15 kilometers I had ever done. Same goes for the next 10. So really, if you ignore the first 5 kilometers, actually 25k of my whole marathon felt really good, which is more than I can say from 25 to 35. It really did start to go downhill. The sun came out, it was getting hot, and I really didn't anticipate good weather. When I say good weather, I don't mean runners good weather. What I actually mean is sunny and hot. I definitely chose the wrong top for this race. I was too hot, I ran out of electrolytes, and I quickly became pretty dehydrated. So naturally you can imagine my performance started to dip a little bit, as did my motivation. Anyway, evidently we pulled through, but to say that was the worst part of my race just isn't true. The last 7 kilometers were fucking demoralizing. It was easily the hardest run of my entire life. I was practically dragging my feet along. My legs felt heavy, heart rate was constantly high. I was taking all of the walk breaks in the world and nothing was helping. It was just so difficult. But we pulled it together and I dragged my sorry ass across the finish line in a very modest time of 5 hours and 46. Strava screenshot just there somewhere. So yeah, that was my first marathon. If there's one more thing I can say about Saturn runs is that the medals are pretty cool. This is the one that I chose, and something else that's quite cool as well is you get a little distance pin for when you've completed either a half marathon or a full marathon. So yeah, that's that. Marathon completed, and as it stands I have nothing else booked in. I'm going to spend a little bit of time getting a bit faster. That's kind of what's next in my program, and within that somewhere might be another sort of casual half marathon, possibly mid-August time, and that will be with Saturn running again. Now before I actually sat down to record this video, I actually asked my Instagram followers what they would like to know from this video in the context of running the marathon. So in a general Q&A fashion, if I haven't already answered them in the rest of the video, I'm going to answer them now. So actually one of the most common questions that I got throughout all of these was questions about nutrition, and without giving a super lazy answer, I'm just going to direct you to the free guide. Honestly, there's so much in it that's going to be helpful for you if you're thinking about doing a long race. It literally goes into detail what you should be having before, during and after your runs, and it includes a little shopping list in there as well, so some actual suggestions on what to get. So a really great one was what kept you going when it got hard. I love questions like this because they're actually quite complex. There were multiple times where I really contemplated quitting and just not finishing it, but I think what I try and tap into whilst I'm in those dark places is just like the one more step mentality, like just do one more step, or just get to that next tree, or just do this one more kilometer, or whatever it might be. But I really think that that's one of the best things, especially when you're really low and flagging and you're in sort of that dark space. Yeah, that's my number one go-to. If not, I just stick on some good tunes and hope for the best. If you've got something that you prefer, by the way, drop them in the comments below. Yeah, so another great question, what other exercise did you do in your training? Too much. I am probably what the internet would like to call a hybrid athlete. I like a bit of everything. I really like weightlifting, and as I said at the start, that's kind of where my background lies, but I'm really getting into triathlon. And although booking a triathlon 4 weeks before a marathon was a very stupid idea, to answer your question, I did a lot. I did 3 sessions a week of weightlifting. I did 1 or 2 swims a week. I did 1 or 2 cycling sessions a week, and I normally did about 3 runs a week. With all that training meant that some days were double sessions, but with my job as a personal trainer and a coach, and evidently a content creator, I kind of have a bit of flexibility to fit these things in. So yeah, too much training. So moving on to the next question, did you do a shakeout run the next day? No, I fucking did not. That's my honest answer to that. I did absolutely bugger all. My secret to recovering as quickly as possible is to do as little as possible. More specifically, trying to stay off my feet, trying to eat really good quality food, and including plenty of protein in that as well, and trying to get in some good sleep. Those are honestly like the 3 biggest things. I did actually walk into town the next day, so I was actually quite surprised that I wasn't more sore, but that wasn't a recovery walk. It was just we're going into town with the kids to grab a coffee. But it was quite good that I was able to do that. But no shakeout runs for me. Someone asked how to prepare for your first marathon. I may actually create a video on this. I think some of you would find it helpful. Let me know in the comments if you think I should do one. But the general basics of it are build your long runs up until about 30 33 kilometers and then taper. That's the super basic answer. What surprised you the most about the experience? How much I enjoyed it, to be honest. Coming from a background of no running whatsoever, I really just was able to take in the experience on the day, and it was incredible. Apart from the fact that the last 17 kilometers were as hard as they was, it was just really enjoyable. Like, the people that were doing the race, they were all so friendly. The people that were organising the race from Saturn Running were amazing as well. They were super supportive, and it was just a really, really cool day out. So I think, yeah, that's probably my biggest surprise. So there were lots more questions that were asked, but I feel like I've covered them during the video. But if you do have any questions about either my experience on the marathon, or you want to know what it's like so that you could potentially do one, drop comments below or drop me a message on Instagram, and I'm more than happy to talk things through with you. But I would like to say, if you're here this late on in the video, a massive thank you for being here and listening to my voice for this long. I'm still relatively new to YouTube. There's a good chance you've come across from my Instagram account, but still, thank you very much for being here. Thanks for watching. Drop it a like and subscribe so you can see more videos like this.